Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about an example using the sine law. If you haven't already, go ahead and watch my introduction to the sine law video where we discuss what the sine law is and how do we recognize situations where we'd be able to use it. So in this particular example, we're being asked to find out a side length of this triangle, so in this case little c, and we need to figure out, first of all of our unknown and our known variables. So let's go ahead and do that first before we identify which variation of the sine law we should be using. So before we do that, let's go ahead and label each side of this triangle. So because we know that angle A is going to be directly across from lowercase a, we know that A represents the side that is 15 units long, B is going to be directly across from angle B, and we already have angle or side C labeled there. So let's go ahead and write those down on a list. And the reason why I like to put these all in a list is so you can see firsthand everything that you know and that you don't know, to get an idea of which variation of the sine law you should be using and which part of the sine law you don't actually need. So you've got all of my angles. So I know A is 15, B is unknown, C is also unknown, angle A is 77 degrees, angle B is unknown, and angle C is 23 degrees. All right. So a couple things that we need to think about right now is which part of the sine law do we not want? Okay. Now, first of all, before we do that, let's go and consider what we're actually being asked. We need to figure out what side C is equal to, which means that automatically we need angle C. So for us, means we can start off with C over sine C. And again, I like to keep whichever variable or unknown that I want to figure out, I want to keep it on top. So notice how I have little c up on top here. Now this ratio has to be equal to another ratio. So we have to either pick B over sine B or A over sine of A. Now we don't know anything about B. We don't know what side B is. We don't know what angle B is. So we can actually just ignore that completely, which means that we're going to put A over sine A on this side. We're going to go ahead and write down all of our knowns and unknowns here. Over the sine of 23 is equal to 15 over sine of 77. So now the reason why in the previous video I asked you guys to try to keep your variable that you're trying to solve for up on top is because we have c divided by sine of 23. Well, essentially what happens here is all we need to do is reverse the operation that gives us a division of sine 23. Now the opposite of division is multiplication. So all I need to do is multiply both sides by sine of 23. And what happens here on the left side is that those actually reduce down to 1. So you'd have 1 times c essentially. Okay. So on the left side here, we're left with c is equal to 15 times sine of 23 divided by the sine of 77. Now when we enter this into our graphing or scientific calculators, we want to make sure that we're sitting in degree mode. So if you aren't sure how to do that, you want to make sure that you hit mode and then scroll down to radian degree on the third line and make sure that your calculator is set to degree mode. So we're going to go ahead and punch in 15 times the sine of 23 divided by the sine of 77. So if we've done that correctly, we'll end up with the result of c is equal to 6.015, and we're going to go ahead and round that to the nearest whole number. So c is 6 units long. So this was an example where we used the sine law to help us figure out the side length of a triangle. In the next example, we're going to look at one where we need to figure out an angle using the sine law.